Less than a week ago, the pilot for the indie animated project Lackadaisy released after many years of production, and I mean, wow, what can I even say? This thing is absolutely stunning. An incredible achievement on every level. The entire history of this project is wildly impressive. It is so cool to see such a gorgeous, creative pilot come to fruition. Going back to look at the long history of the idea and the journey it took to get to this point is wildly inspiring. And it seems to have been very well rewarded with over 4 million views in the first week and hundreds of thousands of new subscribers to the Lackadaisy YouTube channel. And I think this really bodes well for the future of indie animation. So in this video, I want to look back at the entire history of Lackadaisy, what it took to reach this point, and what the future looks like for not only this project, but indie animation in general. Created by Tracy Butler, Lackadaisy started as a comic strip launched in July 2006. It takes place in St. Louis in the 1920s at the height of Prohibition and stars a full cast of anthropomorphic cats. It focuses on the Lackadaisy Speakeasy, an underground nightclub beneath the Little Daisy Cafe, and its struggles to stay in business after its owner Atlas is mysteriously killed and the ownership falls into the hands of his widow, Mitzi May. The comic strip is beautifully illustrated, originally all in the sepia tone that really added to the old-timey vibes. However, Tracy eventually started to incorporate more color into the strips, and these are honestly just as, if not more, stunning. The series was even nominated for an Eisner Award back in 2011 and basically ran from 2006 up until work started on this pilot in 2020. And there are dozens of comic strips in the story. You can see them all beautifully collected on lackadaisy.com, a gorgeously laid out website, might I add. Tracy created a wide array of unique characters to fill out this world, and the Lackadaisy website even has these amazing little biographies with stunning illustrations. Cannot say enough about the presentation of this series. There's Mitzi May, the now owner of the Lackadaisy Speakeasy, intent on rebuilding Lackadaisy's former prestige and reputation. Rocky Rickaby, the teenage drum runner for Lackadaisy, who is also incredibly talented both lyrically and musically. Victor Vasco, an angry giant and longtime laborer slash muscle for Lackadaisy. Ivy Pepper, the enthusiastic, fast-talking goddaughter of Atlas May, who runs the Little Daisy Cafe register and partakes in much of Lackadaisy's less than legal adventuring. Calvin Freckle McMurray, Rocky's cousin and young ward, often led astray by Rocky. Mordecai Heller, Victor's former partner turned muscle for the Marigold Gang after Atlas's death. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I can't say enough about Lackadaisy's roster of characters and how well they fill out this world, which, by the way, is incredibly well researched. Despite being filled with anthropomorphic cat people, it feels so authentic to the Prohibition era, which is a ridiculously fine line to walk. The settings, the style, the slang, the atmosphere of the comic, it's perfect. So it's no wonder that after the comic's success, Butler wanted to try her hand at crowdfunding an animated short/pilot. In her Kickstarter campaign video, she talks about how she's always visualized the potential of Lackadaisy as an animated pilot.
The characters are so full of motion in my head. I cram in extra panels to allow for more character acting. I feel like it's really just crying out for some real animation.
And with such a fully realized concept, it makes so much sense that she would want to take this to the next level. There are so many more aspects of this world and story that simply cannot be portrayed through a comic strip.
The actual motion, the voices, the delivery, the music of the era. I'm really just dying to make that manifest and to show people the fuller picture of what I see in my head.
The Kickstarter also revealed Tracy was collaborating with Fable Siegel to produce and direct. Fable has a ton of animation credits and even worked on the Has-Been Hotel pilot, so indie animation workflow was something they had experience with. And the Kickstarter even announced some early casting choices. Michael Kovach as Rocky, Belsha Barasapi as Freckle, Lisa Reimold as Ivy, Ash Wagner as Mitzi, and Sung-Wong Cho as Mordecai. Truly an amazing and promising lineup from the start. The Kickstarter video ends with a storyboard animatic of the opening sequence of the Lackadaisy pilot as Rocky serenades St. Louis with his poetry and fiddling on an industrial-looking bridge. And this Kickstarter campaign was incredibly successful, earning its full funding goal of $85,000 in just 6 hours and going on to have $330,000 pledged from nearly 6,000 backers. A really astonishing achievement. The project also, however, launched in March 2020. So, yeah. We know what happened right around then. The pandemic forced the entirety of this animated workflow to be done remotely, with the entire staff working from their homes and working over Discord. There is an amazing video by one of the animators on the project, Manu Mercurial, all about his experience on Lackadaisy and how shifting their workflow remotely actually greatly benefited the animators. I highly recommend watching this video. It's really inspiring to see how the more open workflow allowed everyone on the team to learn from one another and improve their own skill sets. Animation does take an incredibly long time, obviously, and so it took about 3 years for the pilot to actually release, but my god, was it worth the wait. If you were impressed by the animatic from the Kickstarter video, the final version of that opening sequence will absolutely blow your mind.
It snakes through seas of prairie grass and groves of summer sassafras.
The moment I started watching this pilot, I was enraptured, absolutely stunned by the animation, the music, the voice acting, the backgrounds. It's just an astounding opening sequence. One of the details that I adore is that for some frames, they keep some of these construction lines used to draw the characters. Just such a cool, subtle detail that really adds to the charm of the animation. The majority of the pilot follows Rocky, Ivy, and Freckle as they secure some bootleg hooch to bring back to Lackadaisy, before they're followed by Mordecai and a couple of other gang members in pursuit of the same haul of alcohol. The opening perfectly establishes the dynamic between the trio of Rocky, Ivy, and Freckle.
Oh, Freckle. Don't tell me you aren't having a good time showing off your shoveling skills for Hotsy-Totsy over here.
And when the chase down from the other gangsters begins, we get a great look at their dynamic as well, establishing that Mordecai is a bit of an outsider and does things differently than his counterparts.
Profoundly unprofessional.
Well, they got more firepower than I expected.
These action and chase sequences are seriously top-notch, really dynamic and well-conceived set pieces. And when the characters all crash into the quarry, the suspense is dialed up as the gangsters slowly try to track down and hunt the trio. The suspense is especially palpable knowing that they're hunting down basically kids. Ivy and Freckle are super young, and they're being hunted by these ruthless killers. Freckle even gets shot as he panics when Ivy is in imminent danger. The atmosphere throughout these scenes is just incredible, and made even better by the astounding sound design. If you haven't watched the pilot with quality headphones on yet, I cannot recommend it enough. The details of the sound mix are next level. I adored the shot where Rocky finds the demolitions buildings and imagines it as this vibrant circus tent. It's a really great visual, and I particularly love the resolution here as Rocky arrives with those explosives on a giant tractor, exploding everything in his path. Because while this did create a fun resolution, it didn't feel like it was a safe or smart one. They were all still in danger through and through and got out by the skin of their teeth, which I think is a great way to establish the dangers of this trade. Now, I will say, if I had any critiques of this pilot, it's less about the story of the episode, which was exciting through and through, and more about how it establishes the premise of the series. Because for the majority of the runtime, I actually wasn't sure what the show was. I was enamored and enthralled by the characters and action and chase sequences, but it felt like a really dope short film more than it felt like it was setting up the setting and stakes for an ongoing series, which is what the final sequence actually does eventually do perfectly. As soon as they all get back to Lackadaisy, it becomes very clear what the premise can do as an ongoing narrative. The Speakeasy being a great location filled with a ton of unique characters, and how the entire heist of the episode was an aid of keeping that Speakeasy running. But we don't arrive back at Lackadaisy until around 17 minutes of the 27-minute runtime. Maybe this isn't actually as big of a problem as I perceive it to be, because by the time they did convey these ideas, I was hooked, but I do feel like they maybe could have done a little more early on to establish these other aspects of the show. For me, my favorite pilots not only convey the characters, setting, and conceit of the series rather quickly, but usually there's also an event that takes place in the episode, or perhaps just took place before the pilot began, that justifies why the series is starting from this point narratively. Looking at other great adult animated pilots, in Futurama, Fry is frozen and then arrives in the future. In King of the Hill, Luann moves into the Hill's house. In Mission Hill, it's Kevin moving in with his brother Andy. In The Simpsons, the family finally becomes whole when they adopt Santa's little helper. In BoJack, he decides to hire a writer to help him with his memoirs. And I do think Lackadaisy definitely has this event. It's the death of Atlas May and Lackadaisy's ownership falling into the hands of Mitzi. I think it possibly could have been made a bit clearer that this was the catalyst, but regardless, this pilot, to me, has all of the pieces to set up an amazing ongoing series. Once we arrive at Lackadaisy, from that point forward, it had me so excited to see more of this series. The characters and the voice performances of the Speakeasy, they're just incredible.
He said, bent over his illicit beverage.
Oh, thank goodness. I wasn't sure you were alive.
Try smiling, honey.
I've watched this thing like 3 times now, and the idea of seeing the story continue is so exciting to me. They firmly establish that despite the success of the heist, the Lackadaisy establishment is in dire straits. The cost was far too high for the return, and they sparked a potential new and dangerous rivalry in the process, a bittersweet resolution that perfectly sets the stage for an ongoing show. But the big question for Lackadaisy as a potential series is what's next? It took 3 years to finish this pilot, and it is incredible, but how can the series continue from here on out? Well, it seems like the show would likely have to go the route of Hazbin Hotel, getting the support of a production company like A24 did for Hazbin to finance an ongoing series, before finding a home or distributor like a channel or streaming service. And if the show's popularity continues to rise, I think this is an incredibly likely scenario. I've already seen so much fan art for the series across Twitter. 4 million views in just a week is no easy feat, and to me, it has the type of fully fleshed out characters and world building that could so easily garner a massively dedicated fan base right off the bat, especially with the dozens of comics for diehards to fall back on while they wait for more. Personally, this kind of adult animation has me truly hyped because it's got a different tone and focus than we typically see these days. Yes, it's funny, but comedy isn't its primary goal. It's telling fun mystery heist stories set in the Prohibition era. There is so much more that animation can be doing. It's a medium, not a genre, and to see something so successfully tell a nuanced story that isn't strictly comedy is very exciting. And I truly think that the success of projects like Lackadaisy, and obviously others like Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss before it, really bodes well for the future of indie animation, and honestly, animation in general. Look, it's no secret that studios are kind of super adverse to new ideas right now. This is true in the film industry, but also in the animation industry. We're seeing amazing original projects that are cut down in their prime, some that get canceled before they even get a chance to find an audience and then require rescuing, and some that get canceled while they're still in production. Meanwhile, we're being inundated with series that are either reboots, reimaginings, or revivals, such as Velma or the upcoming Flintstone series Bedrock. Look, I love Futurama and King of the Hill more than anyone I know, but Futurama had 150 episodes and a perfect ending. King of the Hill lasted 13 seasons, and its final episode is a masterpiece. Of course, I'm cautiously excited to see more of my favorite shows, but why are these shows being greenlit over new ideas? The reality is that if studios refuse to bring us new exciting content, we can help support these new kinds of ideas ourselves by going straight to the creators. Lackadaisy would not have been possible without the support of fans who saw the potential of the show. Shows like Helluva Boss are able to continue independent production primarily off of merch and Patreon support from its fan base. I didn't even know about Lackadaisy until the pilot released, because I haven't been proactive enough in seeking out these independent projects and showing them my support. But we all have the ability to support the things we most want to see made. We don't need to wait for studios to give a green light. There are amazing independent animated series available on YouTube right now, like Aaron Long's Sublo and Tangy Mustard, or Nico Cololeo's Ollie and Scoops. You can show these kinds of project support just by watching and sharing them. Even just through a simple search through Kickstarter, I found this incredible looking stop motion samurai pilot called Hidari, and there are countless other dope looking projects that still need funding. In his video about working on Lackadaisy, Manu Mercurial shouted out projects that other Lackadaisy staff members are working on, namely Ramshackle and Farfetched, both of which look really great and are now in production. The homie Toonerific Tariq has been hard at work on his own animated pilot, Hey, and I cannot even begin to tell you how dope that's going to be. And a ton of my other close friends in this YouTube space are developing their own amazing ideas as well. I want to implore y'all to just go seek out these kinds of independent projects. If you can't support them monetarily, share them and help garner more support. In fact, if you have or find an independent animation project that you do want to show support, post a link in the comments of this video. We can get more eyes on these things right here. If studios won't greenlight the stories you want to see, you can. And if you haven't watched Lackadaisy yet, do it. Leave a comment on their pilot, subscribe to their channel, show your support. I am desperate to see that story continue and really dive into the show once it becomes more fleshed out. It really deserves it. All right, peace.
Johnny Two Challenge!